Intuition is based in the language of the soul. So it doesn't communicate with your mind per se, it communicates through your heart to your soul.
I'll have what she's having.
Welcome to another edition of
She Talks Confidence
Podcast.
Hey, welcome back. It's Tony. It's the She Talks Confidence podcast. And I have another incredible guest. And I'm going to love this because she talks completely my language. And it's Lenka Schultze. Lenka, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Tony.
You are an Intuologist, which we will totally get into. Author, speaker, and spiritual guide. She's the first Intuologist to join forces with a medical doctor in Southwest Florida. And that's where you're at now, right? Southwest Florida?
Yes.
The essence of my teachings and my therapies and coaching with women is a lot of it has to do with showing them or trying to convince them of the power of their intuition, that they somehow either have convinced themselves that it's not true or they don't trust it. Somebody else has convinced them and gaslit them out of it. You as an Intuologist, you specialize in intuition. Can you give me a little background on how you got there and then really what that is all about?
So going back to the beginning, honestly, I never thought I would be here doing this. So it was not like premeditative. Oh, I always want to be doing this. Absolutely the opposite. I had fought my intuitive sense, if you want to call that, as well, because I followed it. I always did, but I didn't felt like it was something special. So like mom and dad stepping into the role of taking care of the children. And sometimes we don't understand that we actually taking away their own intuitive senses because we teaching them to rely on us. So there's a very fine line where it's important to take care of your children, but do not squash that first sense, not sixth sense, the first sense that is louder in them than any other sense. You not tapping into it, you are crippling your way. You are not walking wholeness. It was in my somewhere like late 20s that I reawakened that in a way that I attended a workshop, not even workshop, it was like a seminar. And there was like a psychic on the stage. And I literally remember that moment. I'm home and I needed it. I craved it. It was part of me that I'd forgotten and was waiting to be reawakened. And that, when I started realizing, is that it is important, and it's important to teach my children.
You were talking about instinct and you were talking about intuition. The survival instinct, where do you place that within intuitive senses?
In my book, I have 4 levels. Just like we know how to breathe and we need a water, that is something that is here to help us survive. The other ones are built on that. The second level would be like the empowering one, where you realize, okay, there's something more in me that I can recognize. Okay, I can make this business deal, or that feels good. So you start picking up on the gut hunches. And then it's very empowering to you. It's very specific to your agenda. The third one is the universal, where it's not only about your business deal, but it's about how the business deal affects the other businesses. How does that more universally play a role? How do you play a role in that? And so your intuition sees beyond yourself. It sees the brotherhood and sisterhood of that existence. And the fourth one is the non-dualistic, which that intuition doesn't need words. It's actually the truth without the words. People need to understand that there is a levels of it. It's not just one or two.
One of the issues that comes up a lot with the clients that I meet with is they think that if they go through the process and they work on the process and they get to a level, then they just stay there and then they can move up if they keep working. And then they stay there. It's like Maslow's hierarchy, right? You can't, then you're self-actualized and you're always self-actualized. But as you said, not the case at all. It's very contextual. It's very in the moment, if reaching those points. And you were talking about really coming up with more of or being in a holistic self-actualized state where you can, I call it the 30,000 foot view, where you're up 30,000 feet and you can see everything and how everything impacts. And there are no words to that, right? It's just the sense. That's that sense of knowing. You also talked about the collective unconscious, in terms of looking at it from a societal standpoint or a collective standpoint versus an individual intuitive sense based upon something that's in context, like about yourself.
Confidence, when I looked at the dictionary, it says the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. Someone or something. It's a firm trust. But if we go into the Latin explanation of it, it comes from the word confidentia, which means trust in oneself. So trust in oneself, with, if I would understand it on a level of intuition. Intuition means, from the word intui, means from within. So it's very similar to the confidence. So it's not coming from the outside, it's coming from the inside. However, it comes from the divine essence of ourselves. It doesn't come from the personality. Intuition, it has no agenda on the personality level, which means if it doesn't gel, that is not intuition. Intuition gels with the truth of the universe, with the divine essence of all. So when there's something doesn't feel right, and that's another thing, is the trust, the intuition, and actually confidence is all about the, when you go back to the dictionary, the feeling, which is heart based. It doesn't have thinking. It's the feeling. Same thing with intuition. The true intuition comes from feeling. What I believe our listeners having trouble with the most is that they do not have the ability to feel, and they do not know what label to put on without going into the dualistic world of making themselves good, bad, and ugly kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
So meshing, it's not gelling, which means you're not in alignment with the whole. That is not intuition. It is also very specific in that situation. So, for example, you have to look at the group. If the group is quote, quote, bad, and you have intuition, of course, you're not going to gel. So you need to have that, again, that
Right.
30,000 feet view of what is this group all about. That takes a lot of wisdom to get that level of intuition. Intuition has to be understood on the level of consciousness. And you need to know where you are on the level of consciousness.
The fact that it's the divine essence in the sense is a perfect, I think, explanation. My next question was going to be, hey, I deal with confidence and now you deal with intuition. Now, how do you, and you just answered that. You just like, before I even asked you, what a great combination it can be if you finally do trust and you work on, because it takes work. From what I've seen, and even myself trying to develop my own intuitive senses and to trust them more. When a woman comes to you and you start working with them in terms of trusting their intuition, what are some of the main components? What do you work on? What do you have them confront to get them to start trusting their intuition?
The keys to intuition is confidence, it's trust, it is self-esteem, it's awareness. So when I look at confidence, it's that steam behind yourself, it's the self-esteem, the steam behind yourself. But hold on a second, where's the steam coming from? Did you get a self-esteem from winning the soccer team, or you are the best seller on the New York list, or where's the confidence coming from? If it comes from something that is not self-sustainable, that is not the building block for confidence, for the true intuition. The intuition comes from the divine source. And I was thinking before I came on today with you, I was thinking, who can I give an example? And what came to me was Joan of Arc. She's a 17-year-old girl, just you living somewhere on the farm. Nobody ever heard of her, normal family. And then she has this epiphany: I need to see the king. This self-esteem, this confidence, it's beyond her personality. It is something that people like, are you crazy? You can't go see the king. Who are you? No, you don't understand. That exuded out of her, that people were stepping aside. Okay, she had confidence. She had something in her that was bigger than her. And that is what I'm saying, the divine source. It was coming from something beyond her. The within that, it's the internet, it's the dial-up to something greater than that you surrounding yourself with on a daily basis. If I would help someone in my office, I would look at it as, okay, if you are lacking all of this, where did you lose your trust? Who took your self-esteem away, and when and how, and go back to the beginning. And when we understand that we all have been in one way or another affected in that, even though with the good intentions, confusion is the opposite of intuition.
Mhm.
And that's when the deception walks in. And that's when we have to go back into these women's lives and say, okay, where do you think you had lost it? And can you bring it back? Can you see that can be brought back, because that was just element of your time that you can reclaim.
We have such a great and intuitive system of as we grow up, and kids are so intuitive, and then we bring them into this very binary world, this very dualistic world, and a lot of that's programmed out for them to just operate within the structure that we've created. And it's not for a bad reason. It's just to operate in a structured society, but there's a lot lost. There's so much research with girls and in going to school, and the programming, the dysfunction, and the negative thought patterns that come up. Paternalistic society that we are in, and it's very subtle, and a lot of it's unconscious, and then they end up being like the good girl in school, but then they go to business and that doesn't work for them. Then they struggle. Then that's where the questions start coming in. Most of my clients are between 25 and 45. They've come into the workforce, or they've gotten to the point where they have to make the choice between the career and the family. Either, and it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Mm.
And they're getting pressure from both sides. And what happens with this is they lose their sense of identity,
Yeah.
which is basically just saying, I'm not in touch with my intuition. So I have no confidence. So that's why it's so important to get back to the basics. And anytime a woman comes in and says, in terms of the confidence and working with that, say, what's the difference, or what's confidence and what's intuition? I follow along the same lines as what you're indicating, in terms of the intuitive is just the right. It's like the collective, it's like the absolute truth of things, I guess, if you want to call it that. And I look at it for the good of the whole system. And the reason why I brought up the thing about like in having an intuitive feeling about yourself in context, I think that's ego. And I think that's how you can tell the difference between a false intuitive signal and an ego signal. Do you have particular step by steps that you use when you create a program with them?
That's the problem with intuition. It's no step by step.
Mhm.
And when I see intuitive programs out there, I'm always scratching my head. It is no need to have a step by step. I know people want it, but I refuse to play that, even though my book has some great insights of how to develop it and all that. But intuition is based in the language of the soul. So it doesn't communicate with your mind per se, it communicates through your heart to your soul.
Mhm.
So the first thing you need to realize, okay, I do have a soul. So I'm disconnected from my soul, from that element that gives me the intuitive, feelings. So we already know that from wonderful studies from Heart Math Institute, where they took a computer screen and they showed images to a person. For example, somebody got killed, or a baby's kissing the mom. So the emotions would arise in you, right? So you would react to it. Then what's interesting is that the heart had reacted 6 seconds before the image showed up on the screen. This is what I'm saying. Step by step goes out the window.
Mhm.
It's all about the feelings. So when you are coming into a meeting, even like when you're doing a speech, you get the butterflies and all. That's a feeling. That is the energy of something. So when people start realizing these feelings and not try to numb it,
Mhm.
you don't need to numb it. Even a pain in some way or another is a communication signal. Just like when you drive in a car and the red light comes on, you're like, oh, something's off. I'll take it to the mechanic. But we don't do that to ourselves. We just know we have some kind of a signal, some kind of a feeling. We talk ourselves out of it. We go back into the logic. It's not that bad, or I can just take this or that, or I just call my girlfriend, or escape with a box of chocolate, or whatever this is. It's numbing your feelings, because these feelings, especially if you're not aware of them, they becoming very overwhelming. When the anxiety hits, I look at it as a pressure cooker. Anxiety is nothing more than a baited amount of emotions.
Mhm.
Pressure cooker cooking, the lid is like flopping around. It's time to take off the lid and see what's in that pot.
Mhm.
And just take a deep breath, breathe through it, maybe have someone to help you with it. But don't just close the lid and ignore it, because energy cannot be created nor be destroyed. That's the
Mhm.
simple law. It could
True.
only be
Truth.
transmuted.
Completely true. It
Yes.
has to go somewhere or go nowhere and hang out. When I first started doing therapy, and a lot of the issues were he didn't take out the trash last Thursday. That's not the issue. The issue has been building up for a long time, and it's little stuff that's been building up, or a couple big things, and you don't approach it. And then you're using this surface issue about taking out the stupid trash that you're thinking about getting a divorce. It's not about the trash, right? That's that pressure cooker, and you're holding all of those things in. And it's one of those things where something's going to happen. Some little thing's going to happen. The shoes are left in the living room. It explodes. And then the other person goes, "What are you having a big freak out for over the shoes in the living room?" It's not about that. But having all that energy come out at once, you can't disseminate the different parts of it. It's just blah. And then it kind of rolls out.
Yeah.
But that brings up a really good point, and I saw this on your website, and I wanted to wrap it up with this because I think it's super important. It's probably, I would think, one of your main tools or your exercises is about reframing. You mentioned about not numbing it, because numbing it is denying. It's not letting the flow happen, but reframing the energy into something that would work for you, I think, is extremely important. You talk about anxiety doing a public speaking gig. You
Mhm.
have that anxiety coming up, but if you reframe it or flip it over a little bit to more of an excitement versus an anxiety, then you are more in your own flow, and then you can use it versus fight it. Because if you fight that anxiety, all your energy is going towards the fighting part
Mhm.
instead of like living and being aware and being intuitively connected.
Mhm.
Do you have maybe a prompt exercise or something that you give to your clients?
When I help assisting in these kind of a dualistic issues in relationships, I always say, if you are ready to take a full responsibility that everything you have created in your life, everything, including the shoes in the living room, and then the trash was not being taken out. If you can take full responsibility that everything is out there to assist you in your growth, then you are ready for your confidence, for your self esteem, for your awareness, for the trust in yourself. If you keep blaming other people and other situations, and blaming the government, blaming the society, blaming your cousin, you will never be able to fully stand in your power. The power is the key to self esteem, the esteem behind yourself. So that would be one thing. Reframing 100%. Shoes on the floor. No, shoes on the floor. It is whatever it is. Trash and yep, it is whatever. It's like whatever it is. Oh, I have an anxiety. Yep, it is whatever it is. I am feeling an anxiety. Yep, he's making me mad. Yep, it is whatever it is. So when you neutralize, it doesn't have a power, right? From that neutralization, we are entering into the non-dualistic point of view. And that's when you say in reframing. Reframing, and if you cannot reframe it, just neutralize it. When Dr. David Hawkins explained the trust and neutrality and letting go, it's all on the same level. So when you are able to let go of that, you're going to feel freedom. And that is the huge element of where we go in with our intuition.
It's accountability. It's just being accountable for yourself and for your actions, especially for your reactions. And when
Mhm.
you're accountable for your reactions, then if you do have something come up and it comes up from that amygdala or that autonomic part of your brain, and then all of a sudden it goes up there to the prefrontal cortex and you have to rationalize it, you can stop it and say, why am I getting so upset about the shoes? That's having that level of confidence, having that level of surety, having that empowerment within yourself. And also it allows your intuitive senses to shine and to be something that you can be aware of.
Mhm.
And that's why accountability is so important. Lenka, thank you so much. Lenka Schultze, Dr. Lenka, where somebody can get a hold of you.
They can get hold of me, very simple, lenka.org, and everything's there, including you can purchase the book through my website or go directly to Amazon. I wrote two books.
Hmm.
The first one, Journey of You, was about my journey, and it was leading into that spiritual aspect. And then the second one, the intuition, because it's based on the connection with the soul, it talks about a lot of that, talks about the stories that I share, how I find intuition to be valuable in all areas of our lives. And then in the second part of my book, I'm giving a lot of great tools and very simple tools. And then just these aha moments about deception and trust and lie, how to discern all those things.
Awesome. I love it. And I will definitely put the links in the show notes on YouTube and on all the podcast platforms. Lenka, thank you again. I really appreciate it. That was awesome. Again, we could talk for 5 hours on this stuff. I just love it. If you want to get a hold of me, it's the usual. It's TonyDufresne.com, or if you can't spell it, because nobody can spell it, you can go to theconfidencedoc.com. I have my book out, Surrounded by Idiots. Top fun, super fun read. If you have any comments or questions for me, or if you want to talk to me in terms of any coach potentialities, you can get a hold of me at Tony@theconfidencedoc.com. Hope things are good, and I will see you next time. Thanks.